Chapter 6, Lesson 1 starts with using the percent proportion. So with our percent proportion, we have part over whole equals percent over 100. That's right here. The right side is the easiest part because anytime you get a percent, if you have something like 43%, if I asked you to write it as a fraction, that would be 43 over 100. That's all we're doing on the right side, is writing our percent as a fraction. On the other side, that's the trickier part. It's the part and the whole. It says, in a percent proportion, one ratio compares the part of a quantity to the whole quantity. That's the left side. The other ratio is the equivalent percent written as a fraction. That's the right side, with a denominator of 100, because percents are always out of 100. One kind of key part, or clues I guess you could use to figure out which one is the part and which one is the whole, is part, we look for the clue word is, and whole, we look for the clue word of. And if you have a hard time remembering that, I tend to think of this one has an O, so I use the word with an O in it. And that will make more sense when we kind of start looking at examples of what I mean by is and of. So looking at our got it, 1A, I tend to circle the words is and of if you can find them. So 15 is what percent of 20? When I go to set this up, it's always part over whole equals percent over 100. So my part, remember my clue word is. Since it says 15 is my part. Since it says of 20, 20 is my whole. It asks for what percent? We don't know the percent, so that's going to be a variable. And percents are always out of 100. No matter what this is, to write it as a fraction would put it over 100. Once you have that done, then it becomes pretty easy. It's just our cross products and solving, and you guys are really good at that. So we do 20 times x is 20x, 15 times 100 is 1,500, divide by my coefficient on both sides, and x is equal to 75. Now, when you look at this, since it asks for a percent, we're going to put 75%. Okay? You also might see a question that looks like this one here. And when you look at this one, it says, what percent of 5 is 12? Again, use those clue words to help you. It's usually, we think of it as part over whole, but remember that's really saying it's is over of as you're going through these. So part, that would be 12 since it says is 12. Whole, that would be 5 because it says of 5. What percent? I don't know the percent out of 100. One thing you should be able to notice right away by looking at this is something you should find out about your percent. How big should your percent be on this one? If you're looking at it, since the part is bigger than the whole, that means on this side, if they're equal to each other, this top number has to be bigger than the bottom number as well. So that means our percent is going to be over 100% on this one. On this one, we knew it would be less than 100% because 15 is less than 20. So if these are equal, the smaller number has to be on the top as well on this one. So we go ahead and do our cross products. 5 times x is 5x. 12 times 100 is 1,200. Divide by 5 on both sides. And I get x is 240. Again, since it asks for what percent, I have to put a percent sign on there. Okay. As we continue through, I would keep circling the is and the of. So on our got it 2, it says what number is 11.5 11.4% of 330. When I go to set this up, remember it's is would be our part. What number is? We don't know what number is, so that's our variable. 11.4%, the percent always goes on the top on the right side, and percents are always out of 100. Notice when I wrote my percent this time, I did not put the percent sign. We're writing it as a fraction. When I took 43% and wrote it as a fraction, I wrote 43 over 100, not 43% over 100. And then it says of 330. That of tells me that's the whole number. That's the entire thing. Okay, when you think of part and whole, we're really saying like this is a portion for the part, and the whole is like the entire total thing. Okay? Do our cross products. X times 100 is 100x. 330 times 11.4 is 3,762. We would divide by 100 on both sides, and x would be 37.62. Now, this time it says what number, so we don't need a percent sign, we're just good like that. Sometimes on these, it doesn't have the word is, it just says find. So I'm only going to circle the of, but that still means I know my whole of 425. I also know my percent. If it has a percent sign, remember it goes on the top, on the right. 15.3% out of 100. X goes on the top. We're trying to find the portion of 425. We're trying to find this part of this amount. Now I know this is not the part, but I'm saying this is going to be what this part is equivalent to. Okay? We do our cross products. 100x is equal to let's see, 6,502.5. We would divide by 100 on both sides. And there is a shortcut to dividing by 100. If you don't know, you can always type it in, but really it's you're moving your decimal over 2 times to the left. So it would be 65.025. And if it doesn't tell you to round, you're just going to keep it exactly like that. It didn't ask for a percent, so that's a good enough answer. We don't need to put a label on it. It's just a number. On the next set of got it's, 3a says 30% of what number is 63? Again, it's is the part, of is the whole. So 30% is what it says. I know the percent always goes on the top right. Underneath that is always 100. If you need to, guys, always fill this spot in first. You at least know that spot on every single problem. No matter what, it'll be 100. I could go ahead and say 100, 100, 100. And no matter what else on the rest of it, I know that is correct. Okay? So when I'm looking at the rest of it then, it says of what number? Of is the whole, and we don't know what it is 63. That's my part. So go ahead and do your cross products. 30 times x is 30x. 63 times 100 is 6,300. When I divide by 30 on both sides, I end up getting 210. And again, this didn't ask for the percent. It said what number, so I am good to go on that one. Let's look at this one. 3C says 45 is 3% of what number? I know my percent was 3. 45 is, that's my part, of what number? We don't know the whole. We do our cross products. 3 times x is 3x. 45 times 100 is 4,500. Divide by my coefficient on both sides, and x would be equal to 1,500. And again, it says what number, so that's a good enough answer. We don't need a label on it. Now, there will be some story problems you are going to have to think through, and on the story problems you cannot use is and of clue words. Okay? Because sometimes in story problems we need to just use those words for whatever we're talking about. Like here, I already see the word of. That does not mean that's going to be the whole. Okay? It just means we had to use that word as we were describing the situation. So it says, the table shows the batting statistics for one season for Derek Jeter of the New York Yankees. If he had 639 at-bats, what percent of his at-bats were singles? I know my total at-bats right here. That's the whole amount. And of those 639, they broke down some of the stats that we know of those at-bats. And I know a portion of those at-bats was my singles. And that's 151. So that's where we got this is our part, this is our whole. We are looking for our percent. We don't know the percent over 100. Once you have it set up, you just do your cross products and solve. Since this was asking for a percent, make sure you put your percent sign at the end. Here's one last example. It says, the number of mutual funds that increased in value during the third quarter of the fiscal year was 15. If this is 60% of the total number of mutual funds offered, how many mutual funds were offered? So on this one, I start with the right side because that's the easiest. I know that's going to be 100 no matter what. And then they gave me the percent, so the percent is 60. On the other side, the key here is deciding what that 15 is. Is that a part, or is that the whole thing? Is this a portion, or are we talking about the total here? Since the question said how many mutual funds were offered, they're asking for the total amount there. We also know that 15 is the part because it's talking about 15, and then it says if this is 60%. Okay? So that percent, we're saying 15 is that, so they have to be on the top together. So it's only a portion of the whole thing. Once you have it set up, we just solve. 60 times x is 60x. 15 times 100 is 1,500. We divide by our coefficient on both sides, and x would be equal to 25. And since it is a story problem, we will want to label our answer. So 25 mutual funds offered. Okay? Some people after class were telling me they were kind of struggling with deciding the part and the whole and things like that. So do not forget to be using this to help you out. Should always be part over whole equals percent over 100, and use these clue words. But if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. I would love to help.